It was nearly midnight when I left the bookstore on Main Street. The rain had just stopped, leaving the pavement slick and glistening under the orange streetlights. I usually took the long way home, but that night I was tired. I wanted a shortcut, and that meant cutting through the alley behind Foster's Deli. I hesitated at the mouth of the alley. It wasn't exactly dangerous, just unsettling. The kind of narrow passage where your footsteps echoed too loudly, where dumpsters stood like silent sentinels, and where the air always seemed a few degrees colder. But I told myself not to be ridiculous. I was a grown man, 28. I walked forward. About halfway through, I heard it. A low, steady laugh. Not loud, not forced. Just soft and continuous, like someone enjoying a private joke. I froze. The laugh wasn't behind me. It was ahead. And then I saw him. A man stood about 20 feet away, under a flickering overhead light. Tall, rail-thin, with a charcoal gray suit that looked about 50 years out of fashion. He wasn't moving, not at first, just standing there with his arms hanging limply at his sides and smiling, too widely. The kind of smile that looked like it hurt. I took a step back. The moment my foot shifted, he moved. Not walked, glided. It was only a few inches, but the motion was wrong, too smooth, too silent, as if the soles of his shoes never touched the ground. I felt my mouth go dry. "Good evening," he said, his voice oily and polite. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My brain was too busy screaming. He took another step. "Isn't it a lovely night for a stroll?" he asked, tilting his head like a curious bird. I turned and ran. I didn't stop until I burst out onto Fifth Street, panting, the alley far behind me. But as I caught my breath, I glanced over my shoulder. He was standing at the end of the alley, still under that flickering light, still smiling. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that grin. It stretched too far across his face, like it was carved into his skin. And his eyes. God, his eyes never blinked. They were pale, almost colorless, staring straight through me like glass marbles filled with static. The next morning, I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe a performance artist, a weirdo trying to scare people. But deep down, I knew better. There was something unnatural about him, something wrong. And that's it. At lunch, I told my coworker, Alan, about it. He laughed it off naturally. "You're overworked, man," he said, between bites of his sandwich. "Or maybe you walked into the set of some student film." "His feet didn't touch the ground," I muttered. Alan stopped chewing. I didn't repeat it. I just stared at my coffee, the black liquid swirling like an eye. That night, I stayed late at work, intentionally. The idea was to wait until traffic was heavy, more people on the street, more lights. Safety in numbers. When I finally left around 9 p.m., I chose the main road. No alleys, no shortcuts. But 3 blocks from my apartment, something made me stop. Across the street, standing just outside the glow of a lamppost, was a familiar silhouette. Thin, tall, suit too tight across the shoulders. And that smile, impossibly wide. He didn't move. He just stood there watching. I picked up my pace, heart pounding. My apartment was just around the corner. But when I turned onto my street, he was there, standing right in front of my building. No footsteps, no running, just there. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. Then he slowly raised his arm and waved. Not fast, not playful, just a slow, stiff arc of the hand, like he was greeting an old friend. I ducked into the nearest convenience store, pretending to browse while my hands trembled. The clerk asked if I needed help, but I just shook my head and kept my eyes on the window. When I finally stepped back outside, he was gone. But as I reached my apartment door, I found something wedged into the frame. A yellowed business card. No name, no number. Just 3 words in faded black ink. "See you soon." I stared at the card for a long time. "See you soon." No logo, no address. Just those 3 words printed in a typewriter font that looked decades old. The edges were worn, like it had passed through many hands, or maybe just one, over and over again. I tossed it in a drawer, locked my door, and pushed a chair under the knob for good measure. Ache. That night I dreamed of teeth, rows and rows of them, all smiling at once, floating in a dark void. And in the middle stood the man, his eyes rolled back, white as bone, while that same grin stretched wider and wider until his face cracked. I woke up drenched in sweat. By morning, I convinced myself again that it was all a coincidence. Maybe I was sleep deprived. Maybe the card had nothing to do with him. Maybe it was an old prank someone had slipped into my door. But deep down, the truth gnawed at me. At work, I tried to focus, but everything blurred. Every sound seemed distant, muffled. And by late afternoon, I realized I wasn't the only one acting strange. Alan was quiet, too quiet. He didn't look up from his desk once. "Hey," I said, "you good?" He hesitated. Then without looking at me, he asked, "Did you ever get one of those cards?" I froze. "What card?" He finally turned toward me. His face was pale and there were dark circles under his eyes. "I found one stuck in my windshield this morning," he whispered. Same words, same paper, same faded ink. "See you soon?" He nodded. We stared at each other, neither of us speaking for a long time. After work, we walked to his car together. Nothing strange, no weird people, no smiling man. But when he reached for the handle, another card. Same font, same message. Alan picked it up with trembling fingers. This one had something else. On the back, in handwritten ink, "Tomorrow night, 12:03. He looked at me. "What the hell does that mean?" I didn't know, but I felt cold all over. Then I remembered something, that flickering light in the alley. When I passed by it the first night, I glanced at my phone. 12:03 a.m. I didn't want to believe it was a pattern, that there was something deliberate about the time. But 12:03 kept burning itself into my thoughts like a brand. That night I couldn't sit still. I kept pacing the apartment, checking the windows, locking and unlocking the door as if that ritual could somehow protect me. The world outside looked normal, quiet, dim, almost serene. But I knew better. Alan texted around 11:40 p.m. "Staying up, lights on, don't know what else to do." I texted back, "I'll call you at 12:05. His reply came instantly. "Don't wait. If something happens, just call." 11:58 p.m. I sat on the floor, watching the second hand on my watch tick louder than the rain outside. My heart thudded in sync with every beat. 12 o'clock. Still quiet. 12:02. I held my breath. 12:03. A knock. Not on my door, on my window. I live on the third floor. The knock came again. Slow, rhythmic. 1, 2, 3. A pause. Then 3 more. I didn't want to look, but I had to. I crept toward the curtains, hands shaking, and peeled them back just an inch. He was there, standing on the narrow ledge outside my window, smiling, his face pressed against the glass. Not angrily, not aggressively, just there, grinning like I was his favorite thing in the world. Then slowly he raised his hand, and with one finger he traced a circle in the fog on the glass. A perfect circle. Inside it, he drew a smile, a crude, childlike face. Then he mouthed a word. Soon, I stumbled backward, heart slamming in my chest. The lights flickered. My phone buzzed violently in my pocket. Alan. I answered on the first ring. All I heard was breathing. "Alan," I whispered, still breathing. Then a voice, not Alan's, purred through the line. 12:03. Suits him well. Click. The line went dead. I called Alan back immediately. No answer. Again. Still nothing. By the 5th try, it went straight to voicemail. I threw on my jacket, not caring that I was barefoot or that my hands were trembling. I ran down the stairs 2 at a time and out into the night. The streets were silent, bathed in a sickly glow from the street lights. Everything felt hollow, like the world had been drained of its sound. Alan only lived 8 blocks away. I sprinted the whole way, heart hammering with every step, ears straining for any sound, anything human. When I reached his apartment building, the front door was ajar. Inside, the hallway lights flickered, the same flicker from the alley. My stomach twisted. I took the stairs up and reached his door, 3B. I knocked, no answer. I tried the handle. It was unlocked. The apartment was cold, too cold. The lights were on, the TV was playing static, and Alan's phone was on the couch, screen cracked, case smeared with something dark. I called out, "Nothing." Then I saw it. On the kitchen table sat a single yellow card, familiar, aged, waiting. But this one had something new. In thick black marker, across the front, "Now he smiles too." I backed away, hands shaking, and turned toward the hallway. That's when I saw the message on the wall, scrawled in something that looked too red to be ink. Just that, a wide, cartoonish smile. And beneath it, as if painted with a finger, a trail of smiley faces, all pointing toward the bedroom. I didn't follow them. I ran. Back home, I locked every door, every window. I turned on every light. I sat in the bathtub, clutching a kitchen knife, barely breathing. At exactly 12:03, the power went out. The room plunged into darkness. And from the hallway, just outside the bathroom door, I heard it, a low, gurgling laugh. The laugh was slow and wet, like something trying to remember how to breathe through a grin. I sat frozen in the tub, the knife trembling in my grip, ears straining for every sound. My eyes had started to adjust to the dark, but part of me wished they hadn't. Because I could see him, a faint outline, standing in the doorway. Too tall, head tilted too far to the left. And that smile, always that smile. Even without light, it glowed faintly, like it was carved into the dark itself. I closed my eyes, thinking if I couldn't see him, he couldn't see me. But it didn't work like that. "Don't hide," he whispered. The voice came from inside the room. Closer now, too close. Everyone smiles in the end. Then, silence. I waited for what felt like hours. No more sounds, no more whispers. Nothing. At some point, I must have passed out, because when I opened my eyes again, the lights were back on and the door was shut. But the smile was still there, drawn across the bathroom mirror in what looked like dried blood, and beneath it, in small, shaky letters, "You'll wear it soon." I didn't go to work the next day, or the next. Alan never returned any calls. His apartment? Empty. When I asked the building manager, he just shrugged, said he was moving, cleared out overnight. Weird guy, always smiling, always smiling. They hadn't found his body. No missing person report. It was like he'd been absorbed, taken into something that didn't leave remains. Just smiles. And now I keep finding the cards. In my mailbox, under my pillow, once taped to the inside of my refrigerator. Each one with a countdown, a number that drops every day. 3 days, 2 days, 1. Tonight there was no card, just a knock at the window, and a voice whispering, "Time to smile." I didn't answer the knock. I didn't move, but I knew he was still there, waiting. That same presence, heavy and buzzing in the air like static before a storm. I backed away from the window slowly, holding the kitchen knife tighter, though I knew it wouldn't matter. You can't cut what doesn't breathe. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in the living room with every light on, staring at the window. He never knocked again. But sometime after 3 a.m., I saw it. Not him, but a new card, sliding under my door like a whisper. It was blank. Just a smiley face again, drawn in dark red ink, or blood. I left the apartment as the sun rose, packed what I could in a backpack, and got on the first bus out of town. No destination. I just needed to move. 3 hours into the ride, I finally started to breathe normally again. I looked around the bus. Normal people. No one smiling like a lunatic. No one watching me too long. But then I reached into my bag for a bottle of water and found another card, pressed between my clothes. No envelope, no explanation. On it, a new message. You left the town, but the smile left with you. My stomach dropped. I turned slowly to the back of the bus. He was there, 4 rows behind, dressed in a charcoal suit, skin too pale, neck slightly twisted. His lips parted into that same inhuman smile. But no one else noticed him. No one looked his way. And as I stared, frozen, his lips moved soundlessly. But I could hear him in my mind. Run all you want. We're already inside you. I jumped off the bus at the next stop, some tiny, forgotten town in the middle of nowhere. Didn't even know its name. I just ran. Found a cheap motel with flickering neon signs and paid cash. No ID, no questions. Inside the room, I shoved the dresser against the door and turned the chair toward the window. All night I watched. But nothing came. No knocks, no whispers, no cards. For a moment, I almost believed I'd escaped. But the next morning, I walked to the nearest diner for coffee. Just people there, old couples, truckers, a waitress with too much eyeliner, seemed normal, until she smiled at me. Wide, too wide. I froze. Then a man at the counter turned. He was smiling too. Same crooked tilt, same dead eyes, different faces, but the same smile. I stumbled back, bumping into a busboy. He dropped a stack of plates and whispered in my ear, "He's coming." I bolted from the diner, heart threatening to explode. Ran back to the motel, threw up in the sink. When I finally dared to look at the mirror above it, I saw something that made my blood freeze. A smile. Not mine. Just there, in the mirror's reflection. Floating behind me, hovering like a shadow without a body. Then it faded. Slowly. And in its place appeared a message. Stop running. We like it better when you smile willingly. I couldn't stay in that motel another night. I packed and left before sundown, hitching a ride with a delivery truck headed north. The driver didn't ask much, just grunted when I said, "Anywhere but here." For the first hour, silence was my only comfort. Then the driver spoke. "You've seen him, haven't you?" I turned, my throat dry. "Who?" He gave me a long, sad look. "The one who smiles too much." I didn't answer. I didn't have to. He nodded slowly. "He came for my brother last year. Same way. Cards, knocks, laughter in the dark." I leaned closer. "What happened to him?" The driver's hands tightened on the wheel. "He smiles now. All the time. Doesn't talk, doesn't blink. We keep him locked in the basement." The rest of the ride was silent. He dropped me off near a highway gas station and drove off without another word. I waited until he was gone before heading toward the restroom. I just wanted to wash my face, clear my head. But when I looked into the mirror, he was standing behind me. No sound, no breath. Just his face, inches from mine. His smile now stretched unnaturally, lips tearing at the corners, revealing not teeth, but rows of needle-like points. He whispered, "It's almost time." I spun around. No one was there. But something had changed. I felt it in my body, a tightness in my jaw, a strange tug at the corners of my mouth. I looked back into the mirror. My reflection was smiling, but I wasn't. Days passed, but the feeling didn't leave me. My jaw ached constantly, muscles twitching against my will. Sometimes when I caught my reflection, the smile lingered a moment too long, like it was breaking through. I stopped answering calls. I stopped leaving my room. At night, the knocking returned. Not at the windows this time, inside the walls, behind the doors. Slow, patient, taunting. I found another card taped to my bedroom door. Tonight, the air grew colder. Shadows stretched and warped like they had a life of their own. At 12:03 a.m., I sat in the dark, knife in hand, waiting. The knocking stopped. A whisper filled the room. Smile. The door creaked open, and he stepped in. Closer than ever before, the smile carved deeper, wider, impossible. I wanted to scream, to run, but my body betrayed me. My lips curled into a smile. Not mine. His. The last thing I felt was cold laughter, echoing in my mind. Welcome home.